千里之行，始于足下. A journey of 1,000 miles begins beneath the feet. We now gather in the Tao to travel the journey together. Welcome to Tao Talks with Eric Lin, where we delve deeply into the Daodejing by Lao Tzu. So, coming into life, entering death. That's a pretty literal translation for that. Previously, I talked about coming into life is the transition from the spiritual realm or the Tao into the material world. Then the second half of it, to enter or go into death, is the reverse. To go from the material world, where this is where we all are, this is where we are interacting, this is where we're learning all the life lessons. When our time is done, we transition from here back to the spiritual realm or the Tao, and that is the return trip. That's actually important. That's actually the basis for everything that will follow. So I want to spend just a little bit more time on it. Make sure we all get clarity on the Tao of life and death. So what I'll do here is that I'm going to start with the Tao, and I'm using the yin and yang symbol as the representation for the Tao. So think of this as the abstract, undefined, unlimited, unbounded, infinite field of the Tao. The field that pervades everything, the field that is eternal, the thing, the Tao that you and I are all part of. Then there is the earth representing the material world. This is where we live out our physical existence. So when you see that expression coming into life, the first half of it is about making the transition from the Tao, represented by the yin and yang, to the world, to the material world, represented by the earth, as you can see here. Then the overall scheme is that when we're done here, we all make the return trip. And this is not the only trip that we make, this existence right here and now. So there are many before, many after. And of course, there's gonna be people who say, you're talking about reincarnation. Let's set that aside for the moment and just focus on the main idea of the great circle. So the other half, entering into death, is the return back to the Tao. So I think, everyone would find this entire scheme to be intuitively obvious, intuitively appealing. We know our physical bodies, the molecules of our physical selves, they come from, basically recycled molecules out of all the other material things that pre-existed in this material world. Our bodies. We oftentimes associate our physical selves as us. We identify with that strongly. But you know and I know that there was a time when our physical bodies did not exist, before we were born. There's gonna be a time, hopefully many years from now, when our physical bodies will no longer exist. That's just the way things are. So we also know that our physical bodies is just one aspect of our being. There is another aspect of it, and many people have different names, different labels for that. The spiritual side, the soul, I usually call it the true self. When I call it the true self, what I'm talking about is this bizarre concept, you. This you, well, you know what that is. You feel you. You feel the self. You know you doesn't change. This you-ness doesn't change. This true self does not change no matter how your body changes. It's not really your name, although we think of it that way sometimes. It's not your name because you can change your name to something else. You can change your name to something completely different than your name is today, but you're still going to be you. So that part of it, you're still going to be you. That's the you I'm talking about. That you never changes no matter what. Indeed, I extend it beyond this lifetime to say that this you is the eternal you, the true self. It never changes. It has existed, has always existed, and will always exist, no matter what. There's more to it than that. So all great spiritual traditions speak of it. So I have a wealth of options to pick and choose different examples from different great spiritual traditions to make my point here about the spiritual self. Even if you don't subscribe to the soul, you would still have to admit that there is a you that doesn't change no matter what. You know, at least in the context of our present existence, the existence as of this moment. And of course, you may subscribe to the idea that there's this ineffable soul that we possess, the spiritual entity, or you can also say, well, at the very least, I know that there's consciousness. I know that I have human consciousness. Good, you can hold on to that as well. To summarize everything that I have just talked about, so many different ways to express essentially the same thing, I'm going to bring in Huineng, the sixth patriarch of the Zen tradition. And the reason why I will bring in this great master, this great sage from the past, the Zen tradition, of course, was a fusion of Tao thought and Buddhist teachings. Huineng had a view into the spiritual realm that was clearer than most, before or after. He saw, as you and I do, that the physical body is subject to birth and death. It's transient. It will expire. It will decompose. So then, what Huineng talked about, the way he talked about it, when what we refer to as the soul, what I talk about as the true self, he referred to it as self-nature, that everybody has a self-nature. And when he became enlightened spiritually, Huineng exclaimed, he said, how unexpected is it that this self-nature is not born or extinguished, unlike the body. What he meant is that this spiritual self, this spiritual entity that I am, that you are, that everybody is not subject to birth and death like the physical body because it is an eternal essence. It has always existed. It will always exist. Once upon a time, before humanity existed, it was part of this undifferentiated universal essence. Prior to the existence of the universe, it was simply the Tao. It existed in the non-existence of the Tao. Bottom line, this physical form that you and I experience, this material world experience right here and now, is actually just a small part of your eternal voyage. Okay? So nobody has all the answers. Some pretend to have all the answers. But what we can glean, what we can glimpse, is that there are overall principles that always apply. Now, the question that I oftentimes get when I speak of the Great Circle, and the Great Circle, I'm talking about this circle right in the middle, one question comes up. So Derek, which sutra, which classic can I read that talks about this? I want to read it. I want to buy that. I want to go through the translation of that. Okay, that's in the next slide. The Tao of Life and Death. Which sutra or classic talks about this? To answer this question properly, I'm going to give an answer that I don't like, that I usually don't like. This is the answer. None of them, all of them. Why do I say that? It's because none of the classics or sutras speak to it explicitly. There's not going to be a translation that says, when you die, you go to the Tao. And in the world of the Tao, the roads are paved with gold. So in the classic sutras of the Tao, it doesn't say that. It won't get so specific. It's not going to tell you every meal is a banquet. All of your needs are taken care of. No, the sages will not talk about what they don't know. They will talk about the principles that they understand completely. So why is it that the sutras or classics don't talk about even the principles in an explicit way? Well, it's simple. The Tao that we're talking about right now, it is meant to be contemplated by whom? By the individual, by you, by me. It's meant to be meditated upon. It's meant to be grasped, understood, comprehended individually. It never was meant to be spoon-fed to us. It's something that we have to figure out on our own. This chapter, chapter 50, is a pointing to the path. It's pointing in the right direction. It's pointing to the general area of inquiry. The metaphor in spirituality is to compare the spiritual quest to digging for treasures. So, question for everyone. What if the spiritual insight was simply handed to you? Rather than digging for treasures, it's just given to you on a silver platter. What will happen? How would you feel? Well, you would probably not think of it as being of a particular value. It means more. Indeed, it means everything if you arrive upon the realization yourself. Or, in the language of the metaphor, if you dig for the treasure yourself and uncover the treasure to open up the treasure chest for yourself. So that's what it means when I say, can you dig it? You have to dig for the spiritual treasure with your own effort. All that I can really do is to point in the right direction. That is the appropriate role of all books and teachers is to point to that and say, you can do some digging in this general area, or I can say, you can do your inquiry and self-reflection and contemplation in this general direction. Best of luck to you. May you come upon the insight that can be the most important insight in life. So let's do that. Let's do exactly that. Let's start digging in the general direction, keeping in mind that most of the effort is going to have to come from you. This is something that you're going to have to do for yourself. I can point the way. I cannot do the digging for you. So the way that I will point to it is by this particular slide here. I put this together because I think this makes it so clear. This makes it incredibly clear. Last time, we started talking about the followers of life. So 3 in 10, this is basically the first of the categories that we looked at last time. Basically, Lao Tzu said, among people in general, out of any 10 randomly selected, on the average, you're going to find 3 of what he called the followers of life. So now, let me point out, last time I said, followers of life. That sounds really good. Can I be a follower of life? You know, like a light worker? Can I be one of the good guys following life instead of death? But then what I said is that I want to ask everyone to consider the possibility, other than the usual interpretation, that this is a good thing. The possibility that is not actually a good thing, because a long, safe life can also be a boring life. So even the people who don't understand the deeper levels, they understand the followers of life means the people who have longevity. They live long, safe, uneventful lives. I say that it can also be a boring life in the context that it's a life where you never actually fulfill your true potential. It's just a safe existence. Now, I have a lot more to say about that. I have a lot more to say to prove that it's actually not something that was supposed to be taken in a positive context. And yet, just got to tell you, even when I study all the commentary from Chinese scholars, people who know the original language as well as I do, I see that even they don't get past the surface. They'll look at followers of life and they will assume that it's a good thing. Okay? Now, hang on to that thought. I will explain. Second category, the followers of death. Also 3 in 10, as you can see here. Now, previously I said that the followers of life and the followers of death are diametrically opposite, like yin and yang, to one another. So whatever we say about the followers of life, we have to take the mirror image of that for the follower of death. So when we say that followers of life live long, uneventful lives, we have to say the followers of death live short, risky lives. They take so many risks, and eventually one particular risk catches up to them, resulting in death and therefore shortening the life. So people who live with a lot of risk are the followers of death, especially when it results in their untimely passing. So this, everyone would agree that this is not a positive thing. Everyone would look at the followers of death and say that, well, that can't be the Tao. They mistakenly sometimes think that followers of life are living in accordance with the Tao. I'm here to say that's actually not the case, and I will prove it. Now, for now, let's go to the third category, those whose lives are moved toward death. What is that? Also 3 out of 10, according to Lao Tzu. This is the people, this is the group that could have longevity, but they live lives of excess. They live lives of overindulgence, overconsumption. And it shortens their life, and therefore we say that they speed toward death. They live lives of excess. The line that says why, because they live lives of excess, usually people think, even Chinese scholars will look at that and say it applies to the third category. Overindulgence results in untimely demise. I do want to suggest to you that the idea of excess applies to categories 1 and 2, the first 2 categories. Okay, they're excessive. Why? Because the first category is excessive caution, and the second category is excessive risk. Then the fourth category, which is fewer in number than any other category. So all of the other categories will outnumber the last category 3 to 1. The last category, 1% out of 10, those who are good at cultivating life. And what I said previously was that this is not explicitly stated. There isn't a line from chapter 50 that says 1% out of 10. So why is that? Why is it not specifically stated? It doesn't say those who are good at cultivating life, 1 in 10. It's definitely implied. And it's very easy to see when you look at a chart like this. From 1 to 10, 3 in 10 followers of life, 3 in 10 followers of death, 3 in 10 those whose lives are moved toward death. It's obvious. Well, that's how the ancient sages felt. That, well, it should be obvious. There's no need to belabor the point. Remember, this comes from the Daodejing, written at a time when text was carved on bamboo sheets, on bamboo scrolls, basically bamboo strips strung together. Writing medium was at a premium, was hard to come by, required effort to assemble, required resources. Whatever you express had to be concise and to the point. Therefore, you have to not talk about the things that are already obvious. And remember, the Daodejing was written to be a summary of existing wisdom. It was supposed to be a concise summary of existing wisdom. Therefore, the ancient sages would naturally feel it is not necessary to belabor the obvious. So this is the point where we ended last time, the 4 categories, and we were about to get into the final category, the last category, the 4th category, and to talk about, describe the people who are good at cultivating life. Our meeting has come to an end, but the journey continues on. Let us travel safely. Until next time, may the Tao fill you with peace and happiness.